take notes as fast as I can, but I think it would be good for us to record it just so I can go back and revisit if that's okay with you.
We are recording as we speak. And then
Okay.
what I'll do is put it up on someplace anyhow, and then I'll send you a link so that you'll have a link to be able to get to it. It'll probably be on YouTube or something.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. It's easy. There's a little button on here that says record. That's as much work as I had to do.
Great.
Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. Let's start out with the reporting. So what I've selected is your new strategic plan. And so that's when I go to the reporting, it's going to be, that is my relationship. So okay. The reports button is a little blue one up here in the right corner. I'm going to click on that. So I have a bunch of different reports. The most common and probably 90% of the time you're going to use a report is this top one, the operational plan. So when I click that button, it's going to generate an operational plan for the strategic plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on that. It's going to gonkulate a few minutes here. So then what it's going to do is it just created the report for the strategic plan. And you can go down, and right now it says I'm looking at the objective level only. So let's go up to the top and just see what are the services. So when I look at it this way, the only thing I see is those initiatives, the top level up here. So these are the 5 initiatives that you guys have chosen: people, quality, efficiency, effectiveness, public health, capacity, and communications. So I'm just looking at the top level. Now I'm going to go down to the next level, the goal level here. And when I do that, you'll notice now that each of those initiatives has the goals underneath it. So I can work my way all the way down. So we'll go all the way down to the activity level to see what's in there. So yeah, so now you can see we're down at the initiative, goal, objective, activities. So this would be the entire report. Now, I'll give you a little kind of a secret here. Remember that the groups are hierarchical. So if I start out at the department level, for instance, and then I hit the show subgroups button, what it's going to do is print out a report that has every plan in the entire department. Now, when you get a lot of plans in there, that could be hundreds and hundreds of pages, and it may take many, many minutes to generate that report, just so you know, but it will generate a report. So if you have, let's say you have WIC out there and you want to generate a report for everything in WIC, but underneath WIC, there's another group called Supplemental Nutrition Services or something like that, that it reports up to WIC. I could then generate a plan that had all of WIC and all of Supplemental Nutrition Services in one document. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So it's very flexible. So, but literally, I did this once with Maricopa County, who's our largest, the original client and the largest client. They have somewhere around 800 users on the system. And I generated that one time just to see how big it was. It was 1,600 pages long. So they have a lot of reports in there.
Careful with that.
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't do anything other than generate a report here. Now, so I've got this report down to the activity level. Now, if I want to actually print out that report, that's what this little button down here is for. So when I click on this, it's going to pop open this window. So the default name for every report is VMSG report.htm. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me into, to pick a real name for the report. So I'm going to go into your guys, and we're just going to call this and this is just my personal preference. I always like to put a date sequence in the end. So it's 01/08/19. Because the dates, are just the last time it was saved, and that doesn't mean that's the report date. So that's just my personal preference. So I'm going to save that. So now I have that report saved in an HTML format. And the reason we did that is because it is kind of the most generic format, because you can do anything with it. I can take and export it into an Excel, or not Excel. Well, you could export it into Excel. You can export it into Microsoft Word. You can print it out. You can make a PDF of it. So HTML format is here. So it shows up down at the bottom of the browser. I'm going to click on that. So now here's my report in a regular web page format. And literally you could take this report if you wanted to, because it's an HTML file, you can take that report and put it as a link on your web page, and it would show, when somebody clicked on that link, it would show this exact report. So lots of things you can do with it. If I wanted to print this out, I would just go to my browser and go down to wherever my print is here, print. And then I would say I just want to print it to, I could print it to my actual printer, or I can say I just want to save as a PDF, and that's how I generate a PDF file out of it. Now, when I'm generating this report and a PDF, typically you want to go to landscape mode, and they look a lot better because it shrinks it down a little bit horizontally. So what I've done is just generated a PDF of that same exact report that we've done. And like I say, here's a lot of things that I like to do with it, so I'm going to cancel this. If I want to take and make a Word document out of this so I can go in and make some edits and maybe put some other comments in there, what I'll do is just click anywhere on the report. On my keyboard, I'm going to hit Control-A, which is select all. So you see it all highlights here. Then I'm going to hit Control-C to copy that. Now I'm just going to open Microsoft Word. Okay, so I've got Word here. I'm going to want to put it in a landscape mode as well. And now I'm going to set the margins. I always like to make real narrow margins so that I got as much room on the page. Now I'm just going to hit Control-V, which is paste. And there's my report in a HTML format. So now you can go in and do anything you want to reformat it and that sort of thing. It's all built into little tables in here, as you can see. So each of these is a table in here. So it gives you the ability now to go in and do anything you want to do with this report. For, you know, some people like to put in like additional notes and things like that, or you know, point people to specific areas and things like that. So that's generating reporting. You have a lot of flexibility. The base file is always generated as an HTML file, which is, you know, standard web file. And then from there, because it has all its formatting and everything built in, you can do pretty much anything you want to do with it. So let's go over some of the other options up here. This is something it's kind of going obsolete. We'll be taking this out at some point in time. There used to be an option, or there is still an option, to be able to put the notes, which there are, doesn't look like there's really any notes in here, but the notes, instead of being in a row underneath the planning element, they would be a next separate column out here in the notes. But what happens is when you get a lot of notes, it expands the rows, so you end up with having really, really long reports as opposed to having them using the whole page width here. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. So that's
okay.
Notes is basically what the person responsible would be inputting, right? Just like update of progress or.
Yeah, let's go in and actually do that so you can see it. So I'm going to go back to my services here, people, and I'm going to go to the goals for that. So for this goal, let's just say we put a note. If I could spell, it would be a lot better. So this is a test note for goal 1. Yeah, so when they do their update, they're going to typically set the traffic light, and they're going to put a note in there at the goal level here. So now if I go back to my group and I select that again, now I'm going to generate that plan again.
Lindsay had a question. Does it timestamp the notes?
So what?
Lindsay had a question. Does it timestamp the notes, like when the note was put in or anything?
No, it doesn't at this point. You can definitely do that. We actually have that capability that we're going to build in, but we have to be able to provide for those people who, you know, have the current system. We want to be able to give them the option to stay with this kind of note, or in your settings, you can say, give me the timestamp notes, and what it'll do then is put in the person and the timestamp. We use that in our what we call our CRM system, and it's there. We're just going to put it in. So that'll be a future upgrade that we'll be putting in there. For now, it just puts the notes in there for you. And if you wanted to, just put in your initials and the date and time or something along that line. That's what a lot of people do. So the notes here show up in blue on a report, as you can see, and they can be at any level, obviously, at the objective or the activity level. Now, the other thing I can do, let me go back to where we were here. Go back to the same goal. Now, I can also attach a document to this particular goal, and that's what this little button here is for, document management. Now, I'm going to add, I've just got a dummy bunch of documents that I use here, so I'm going to go into test, and I'll just put this little document right here in. The fingers aren't working real good. And we'll flip that over to green, and then I'm going to save that. So now what's happened is it took the document that I just selected, it uploaded into the server here, and now I put in a description of the document, I put in a note, and I put in the date. Now, this date is not the date that the file was saved. It's a static date that you set. And what that's typically used for, especially in the accreditation process, is what FAB calls the expiration date of this document. So as you know, your ship has got to be less than 5 years old. Your workforce development plan has got to be less than 2 years old. So that's what that date is. So you can always look at that and say, yeah, we're within the margin for FAB. So now I've got a document attached to that particular planning element, so that goal. So now let's go back and show the report again. So now you see there, you don't see the document, but that's what this little button here is for. If I click on that, now it's going to redo it, and it's going to show me right here. You see the document we just attached now is showing up in green. So I've got a note for that goal, and I've got a document attached to it. So as you go through especially if you're using the accreditation project plan, you're going to end up with a bunch of documents attached, and it'll show you exactly what's attached to each planning element in there. The other thing that probably won't apply right now is the ability to set, because we don't have many, let's look at the activity level here.
Yeah, I have no activities for many of these.
Yeah, but here's what the date thing does. If I click down on this, it's going to say I want to look at everything between date A and date B. So a lot of times you might want to just look at activities that are planned to be completed last month or this month, let's say. So you just put in the dates of say 1/1. I don't know if anything will show up. We can try it. So January 1 through January 31st. Yeah, so we got some of the activities are in those days. So what it does is just narrow down that date range. So I just want to see everything that's due this month, and the activities that are due this month. So that's what that piece of the report is for. The show subgroups button is exactly that. So we don't have anything right now under the strategic plan, but if we had some group under the strategic plan, that was, I don't know what it would be, but some other group under the strategic plan, you hit the show subgroups, it's going to show the strategic plan report, and then underneath that, it's going to show strategic plan draft report or something along that line. So you could have, like I say, this is where you could go to the department level and print out the entire department. Where that's typically used is where you have, let's go back to your groups and see where we have multi-level groups there. Yeah, so like under here you have maternal and child health, and then under maternal and child health you have child and family improvement branch, and underneath that then you have oral health and pediatric section. So if I were to select this one, and I don't even know if there's anything under there, let's go look, find out. Try a report there, operational plan. Okay, so all we're showing is the group. If I were to hit the show subgroups button, it should show me that's all the groups that are under MCH here, apparently.
So a question I have is if we have some division, say MCH, does their own individual division strategic plan, but their objectives align with the department strategic plan, can we somehow tag that, or would that be, like, some of their objectives are going to be specific to their division, but some of them will align with the department. So how do we, like, ensure that that alignment? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, first of all, your strategic plan should be your strategic plan. So what you should have under your strategic plan is, so this is your new strategic plan here. Underneath there, if you have something that falls under one of these, primary initiatives that is MCH, what you're going to do typically is build it out down at that level. So what would you think? Under people, maybe it would be for MCH?
So some of the divisions have developed their own goals and objectives, but what we want to do more in the future is make sure that aligns with the department's strategic plan. So it's kind of been happening simultaneously. So we want to just ensure that alignment. So I didn't know if there was a way,
There is. Okay, let me show you how that works. Okay, so here's what you do in that case. Under MCH, you're going to build out their operational plan. So this is the operational plan for MCH, whatever the things are that they're going to do all the way down to the activity level. And then what you're going to be able to do is, and there's really nothing under there right now, but let's take an example of something under the ship here. And let's say we want to link obesity from the ship back to the strategic plan. You got this little button right here, this categorization button. Let's see, I don't think we have your, no. What we need to do is put the initiatives, and we can do that here in just a minute, from your strategic plan into these categories. So now what you're going to do, these would be called your strategic priorities from your strategic plan. What you're now going to do is link the other plans to your strategic plan at the strategic priority level. So why don't we go ahead and I'll show you, and that's exactly what you're trying to do, I think. So let me show you how we're going to set these up for you. So we right now have your strategic plan. So what I'm going to do is go back and regenerate that at just the initiative level. So let me go back here and groups, strategic plan. I'm going to generate a report at just the initiative level here, going up to here, and say just services. Okay, so now we have those 5 services. Let me go ahead and just save this report. Those strategic priorities. And then one really nice thing about having these HTML reports is that they're great for copying and pasting. I use them all the time for that. So I'm going to open the strategic priorities in another tab up here. So now what I'm going to do is go back and, okay, I'm going to highlight that, Control C. I'm going to go back to my plan. Now, as an administrator, when you go to the main menu, you got this button down here called Categories. So what we're going to do now, strategic priorities are the strategic priorities from your strategic plan. Well, if you notice, they're really not. They're from our demo strategic plan. So I'm going to go in here and paste people in there and save that. So now I'm going to go back to strategic priorities, get quality. So what I'm doing is now creating a set of subcategories that are your strategic priorities, so that now we can go back and tag everything else against those. And then I'll show you a couple of cool things that does for you here. Priorities, efficiency and effectiveness. This is something we usually do once we get your strategic plan in there, but since we're still working on that. We'll do it right now. Are you following along with what I'm doing here?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Okay. Okay. Please ask any questions as we're going along if I'm going too fast. Obviously, you know, I've done this before, and I kind of whiz through things sometimes that may not be intuitive. Okay, so what we're doing.
While you're copying and pasting, I wanted to ask a side question. I see that
Okay.
we have the cabinet logo. Can we switch it out for our department logo?
Absolutely. Yep, I'll show you how that's easily done. Okay, so now what we've done is created under strategic priorities, we put in your strategic priorities. Okay, so now let's go back to what else is in here that you're aware of? Any plans that are in here already?
I think that's it.
Okay, well, let's go with SHIP then, and we're going to go in. Let's just pick substance use disorder. We'll say we want to link this goal with your strategic plan. So I'm going to go down here and click on this little categorization button. That's going to take me to those. These are now those strategic priorities we just put in. And let's say we're going to link that to the people strategic priority. So I'm going to select people. I can select as many of these as I want, but that kind of seems to one that fits right. So I'm going to save that. Now what it's going to ask me is, do I want to take and put and categorize everything below that goal? So I've got the goal here. I can say, no, I just want to categorize the goal, or I want to categorize the goal, the objectives, and the activities, which would be kind of normal if you're thinking about it. Then you can also go back, by the way, and adjust those. But for now, let's go ahead and say yes. So now what we just did, now you notice this one is, if I do the rollover here, I can look at that and say, okay, what we've done is categorized the particular SHIP goal to the strategic plan. I can go back, and if I drill down to objectives, you'll see this objective, same thing. It's been categorized because we told it to roll down through the entire plan here. See, do we have any activities here? No. Okay. So just down to the objective level. So what we just did is we put in your strategic priorities. So now as these people are developed, so MCH is developing their plan, what they'll do is go back and say, okay, I want to link this back to our strategic plan. And that's exactly what you're going to be able to do, is go back and now link back to the strategic plan. And down, let me show you here. So I'm going to go back to the department level, and I'm going to look at, see what's, I have no idea what will show up on the dashboard here, but we'll find out here as it calculates. Okay, yeah. So what we're saying is that we have a whole bunch of activities that are in the red status. That's probably the FAB accreditation plan, because they're all set to red normally. Got a bunch of green ones in here. But down here, see these three buttons. What I'm showing first is my people who've been assigned as leaders. So it's Janie and Aaron, Sarah and Connie have been assigned as team leads on specific activities down there. The other options I have is I want to look at it by group. So what I'm going to say is I want to look at my org chart and see how the org chart is doing here. So we'll see that in a second here when it pops up. Yeah. So now what I've done is gone through, this is the top level of my org chart. If I were to hit show subgroups, it's going to take me down to my entire org chart. So everything on the group screen will show up in here. It'll say the last time this information was updated. It'll show you anything that's lagging, and the color coding is telling you how far it's lagging. Same thing with overdue, meaning the ending date on that activity is past and we're overdue. So this one is just a little bit overdue. This one is quite a bit overdue. The red, yellow, green, and gold. So that's the org chart. The third one is where that strategic priorities are going to come in. So what I'm going to say is I want to look at the strategic priorities and see which pieces of other plans are supporting that. And you can do it that way, or you can just print a report that says, show me everything that's aligned with strategic priority 1. So we set it up for people. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not showing up. I have to go look at that a little bit more. But what should be showing here is under people, last updated. Yeah, I'm going to have to go look at that, figure out why. There's some reason it doesn't show up yet until we do something. But what's going to happen here is it's going to show everything, all the activities that are supporting the strategic priority of people, quality, efficiency, building public health capacity. Just for kicks, let me try show subgroups here and see if it picks them up. Nope. Okay. Well, I'll figure that one out. So anyhow, that's what the bottom of the screen is for. This is your strategic priorities that we just put in there. And what it'll show you is everything that links to that strategic priority. And again, I'm not sure why it's not showing up here, but I'll take a look into that. So does that answer your question about linking plans to the strategic plan?
It does. And I think that's going to be a really important feature because, like I said, some divisions kind of forged ahead and have done their own, and
great.
We make sure that it's aligning. And I think the big thing is just to show, you know, every person in every division where their activities fit within the grand scheme of the state, you know, the public health strategic plan.
Yeah.
So
let me make myself
as well. That's going to be an important feature for the ship. One more question. What is the gold again?
Gold is successfully completed.
Okay.
So you got red is stopped, something's wrong. Yellow is something potentially going wrong. Green is everything's on track. Whether it's done or not green doesn't indicate that. It just means that we're on track. It means, you know, maybe we have a date that's the end of the fiscal year, but we're moving ahead as planned. We're on track. Gold means we're done. We successfully completed this particular piece of the plan. So if it's gold at the goal level, that means that it's probably also gold at the objective and the activity level as well. Okay. And typically you're marking that. Now, if you go into an activity and mark it as 100% complete, it's going to automatically set it to gold for you because obviously that means that it's completed. I'm just making myself a note on this strategic priorities.
So if I'm a little bit concerned about the dates just for purposes of submitting. So for example, our state health assessment, we actually have a state health assessment that we're going to use. There are goals that have been accomplished on that. And so in terms of tracking that in the system, being able to show that we tracked it in the system, will we be able to manually change that date, the dates that we did those things, or is it going to appear as if we only accomplished them on the day that we actually uploaded them into the system?
No, you set the dates. Any activity, you set the date on. You set whatever it is. If it's a date in the past, it doesn't care.
Okay, so I could put on there that it was there on July 2018.
Whatever that
exactly. And what you want to do then is set it on, like, say it was July 2018, and you set it to gold. And what that tells it to do is once it's completed, even if it's a past date, it's not going to include it in any of the calculations for being late, basically. Does that make sense?
So like for policy, so we're looking at using the VMSG system to put our policies in there, and I didn't know you could actually add a document, so that makes it even better. So we would put in our current policy on policies or whatever, and then we would set the date. Like if we wanted those on an annual review, we would just set it, like, I'm a little confused on the dates too. So like if we upload a document, you said the date needs to be, like, how would we put those on like an annual review?
Okay, what you want to do is create a plan for your policy management, let's say. And then under policy management, you're going to have the various different levels of policies that you're going to do. And then what you're going to have at the bottom is an activity that says, update this HR policy annually. So you're going to create what we call a QA activity, quality assurance activity, which is a repetitive activity. And it'll say, you're going to do this annually. So you're going to select annual as the frequency. And then you're going to say the beginning date is today. And we just updated this policy. So a year from now, it's going to come back up and say, this policy is due to be updated a year from now. Or you can just set a date on it. You know, it's just as easy if you're doing an annual thing to just say, we're setting a date. And then what's going to happen is it's going to get to that date and it's going to say it's time for you. You know, it's behind schedule, if you will. It's going to come up and say it's time for you to go in and do this. And it's going to take you to that activity, which will have the policy attached to it as a document. You'll download that policy. You'll make any changes to it that you want to make to it. You'll re-upload it as the same name, the same policy. The system will create a new version of it automatically and mark it as version 2. And then you're going to say, and it's going to ask you when you save it, do you want to reset the date, the beginning date for this period to today? And you'll say yes. And that means that a year from now, it's going to come back and ask you to update that policy again. So build a little plan out. And then as activities, have an activity for each policy. And they may fall under different areas. So you might have HR policies, an objective that says on an annual basis, update the HR policies as your objective. Underneath that objective, you'll have a set of activities for each policy. So you'll have policy 1, and you're going to have a date on it that you're going to update it. Typically, they're fiscal year updates. So at the end of the fiscal year, you're going to do this update on there. And then you're going to attach that document right to the activity, that policy, right to the activity. So what's going to happen is it's going to come up on your quick update screen, and it's going to say, Janie, you need to update this policy here. You're going to be able to download that policy document right there from the system. You're going to make any changes to it in Word or PDF, whatever you're doing. Then you're just going to upload it back into the system. And when you do that, the system says, oh, same name, must be a new version. It's going to create a new version of that policy and put it up there for you. And every year when you do that, it's going to keep all the previous versions for you there. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm going to ask another question related to the date. This may be backtracking a little bit. So we talked about how we can put all of these different things, and we can put whatever date we want on them. So when we pull a report, can we backtrack the date on the report as well? I'm thinking about we have to show that we've 2 examples of where we've tracked. Mm-hmm. So if we put things in today, but we need 6 months worth of tracking, are we able to go back 6 months? You see what I mean?
Why, yes, you are. Yeah, what you'll do, let me show you an example. I'm going to take you out of your group so we're not messing up any stuff that you've done. I'm going to take you into our little demo group here so we can play, just so I can show you some examples here. USA Public Health, and we'll just go into our demo test here. This is just test data in here. So here's what happens. At the activity or the objective level, if I have an activity in here, let me just make it a Sharps activity here. So yeah, this is a project-based activity. What I can do, so there's a history file here. That's what this little hourglass is. Let's see what's in there. I'm not sure. Sometimes it takes it a second to refresh this, but I don't see it doing anything. Let me go ahead and save this, make it 10%. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So every time you hit that save button on a planning element, it creates a history record in here. So what I just did is created a record that says on 12/31/18, or no, the time frame was set from a beginning date to an ending date of 12/31/18, marked it as 10%. So if I go back and look at that history record, and what I want to do is say, you know, really, this was marked on 12/31. So I can, as an administrator, you have these fields down here. So what I can do is say, okay, I want to actually change the record date back to 12/31, 18, and then I save that. So now what it did is it creates a history record back on 12/31. So now I can do that for, if I want to go back 6 months, and let's say I want to do it every month, I can go back, and what I do is I save the data from my activity here, and I save it as it was on that date. So even if I have this beginning and ending date, which really doesn't matter a lot, let's say back on 6/30, we were at 5%. So what I'm going to do is set that to 5% and save it. Okay, so now what I've done is created a history record. I'm going to go into my history record here, and we have this one right here. So I'm going to select the date. I'm going to go back and say that this was actually 6/30/18, and I'm going to save that. So now I have two history records for 6/30 and 12/31. So when I show that in my chart, which probably won't show a whole lot here, but yeah, so here's the actual data right here. I could say, let's see, auto set that. Yeah, so back on 6/30 we had 5%, and back on December 31st we had 10%. And what you can do is create history records just by setting the value in the activity to what you wanted it to be at that point in time. Hit the save button, go into the history record, click the date that you want to change back to that date, and then put in that date and save it here. And what you've done is basically creating records from the past, because obviously, you know, from the time you implement our system on forward is not the beginning of history. So now you can go back and create those records. So what you're doing is creating a historical record, and this is what you would then use to prove that you were doing this updates all along. And is that clear?
Yeah, I think that answered my question. I was just concerned about, like, our timeline, being able to actually get things in by the time we submit, and then still being able to show that we've tracked it twice. But if I know that, like, we can put our dates in, and then, you know, 5 months from now when it's time to submit, we can go back 6 months from now and pull that report, then I think that that makes sense, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, the concern was, you know, we have been looking at our strategic plan objectives. You know, it may not be as formalized as what we're doing currently, but we need to show some kind of progress. And so if we have documentation outside of this system, then can we go in and kind of create that documentation? Say we had we have evidence of a planning meeting that happened, you know, a year ago where we talked about the strategic plan. Obviously, that's not something that we would have in the system right now, but could we go in there and create that, assuming we have the supplemental documentation to back it up, you know?
We just want to know that we can use this system to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. What you do is just put in a note down here. You put in, you know, whatever, what you're doing is making a mock record here. So we're going to go in and say, okay, back a year ago, the information was such, and you're going to put a note in there just saying, this is what happened on that point in time. Save it, go into the history file, change the date back to the date that you wanted it to be, and then it becomes a history record in there, and it shows up in your history file as well as on the chart.
Yeah. I had a question about what is the difference between an activity and a QA activity. Is a QA activity, is that a different tab, or it just goes under activities, and how do you set it for like that repetitive?
Well, let's do that.
Let's
create a new activity. So we're in this little dummy area. So what I'm going to do is create a new QA activity. let's see, let's do a bi-weekly activity to collect timesheets, okay? Something silly like that. So what I'm going to do is go in and I'm at the activity level here. I'm just going to hit the plus button, create an activity. So I'm going to say, my activity is to create timesheets bi-weekly. Here's where I decide what type of activity it is. So I'm going to go down and select a QA activity.
Okay.
And that's going to pop open a little wizard here. So the default frequency is quarterly. I'm going to say I wanted to do it do bi-monthly, I think is every other week here. So I'm going to start on today's date. And then so I'm going to say, let's say 10 timesheets is the number that I'm looking for. If I collect less than 8, then it's going to be red. So what this is going to do is, if I get to 10 timesheets, it's going to mark the traffic light as green automatically. If I'm at 8 or below, it's going to say it's red, meaning we didn't do that. So we're going to call it, and I'm going to hit save, and it's going to create this. So timesheets collected, measured bi-monthly. If it's greater than or equal to 10, it's going to set it to green. If it's between 8 and 10, it's going to be yellow. And if it's below 8, equal to or below 8, it's going to be red. Going to start on this frequency. And what's going to happen then is every week it's going to ask you to update this information. So let's say I'm going to go in here and put in, let's call it 9 for now. So what happened is you'll notice the traffic light set itself to yellow over here because it's between 8 and 10 in here. So when I save that, it's going to create this new activity that's a QA activity. It's going to happen on a repetitive basis, in this case, every other week. Now, if I want to go back and change those settings, I just use a little wizard button here. And I can say now I want to change that to monthly instead of bi-monthly. Save that. So now it changed the performance metric to measured monthly up here. Same information down here. Let's go in and put this at 10. So now it's set to green now. So when I save it, it should be, okay. And then every time I save a QA activity, it's going to ask me this question. Do you want to update the start date? Remember, it's repetitive. So typically what you're doing is at the end of the period, you're going in and making the change. So do I want to update the cycle date? Typically, the most common is current. But let's say the end of the cycle date occurs on a Saturday and you're actually doing it on a Friday. You want to go in and say, yeah, I want to select the date. So I'm just going to put in the date of 2/1/19 in this case, and then boom, it's set. Save it. Oops. So it already saved. So now what I've done is gone in and changed the beginning date for the next cycle to 2/1/19. So that's a QA activity. It does a couple of things. Number one, it is repetitive, like you said, and you can select any of those repetitions that you want. You always just go to the little wizard button to do that, and it'll take care of it for you. It is automatic in the way that it sets traffic lights because you're setting a red and a green value, and when you set that, it's going to compare that as you enter the data and set the traffic light for you. Does that answer the question?
It does. And so for each activity, do we set what we want the traffic light to be?
Yeah. Now, on a project-based activity like this one up here, the problem with project-based activities is that they're very, very generic. So there's really no way that the system would know to be able to set the traffic light for you. So you're going to have to look at the information and say, yeah, we're on track doing that. I'm going to set it to green. Or if you see something like maybe you've been monitoring the spending rate for this particular project, and you think you're going to run out of money before the end of the project. You might mark it as yellow and then go down here and put a note in there, something to the effect that based on the current spending rate, it appears we're going to run out of funds for this project. That would be typically what a yellow, something like that. Or you can say, hey, we lost our primary resource. We lost the person who knows this project. They left the organization, or they're out on medical leave or something like that. That would be something maybe to mark it as a red and put a note in there to be able to do that. So for project-based activities and quantitative measurement activities, the traffic light is a manual setting. The only automatically set traffic light is for the QA activities because you're setting that high and low value in there.
Okay. So like in the case of, so your example with the spending, could we set it like if somebody's trying to monitor grant funding or something, and so could you set that? That would have to be a QA activity. So like if it goes below $10,000 or whatever, that's a red or something, could they set that as a QA activity?
Yep, exactly. So you could set it to monitor it on a monthly basis. Let's say on a monthly basis, you're going to put in the spending rate.
Right.
And that spending rate would go into here. So let's say it's $10,000. So you got, 10K. You're going to put that in there, and you're going to set it. If it's over 10K, then you're going to, hey, you can flip that around, by the way. So on a QA activity here, so what I'm saying, it's green if it's over 10. Well, that may not be the case. I may want to make that. So if it's less than, we'll say if it's less than 8, it's green, and if it's greater than 10, it's red. So what I did is just flip them around. So instead of being above it, it's below it. So when I save that, it's going to say if the spending is less than 8, it's going to be green, meaning you're doing really well. If you're spending between 8 and 10,000, it's going to be yellow. And if I'm spending over 10 at 10 or over, it's going to turn it to red, which is what it did here. So when I save that, to current date. So now we have that because we spent over 10. So yeah, if you do that for your spending, it's going to automatically set the traffic light based on those values you put in there.
Okay. And then one more. So if we wanted to do like if we wanted to do a QA activity for the policy the department, so would we start on our screen, would we start at, and say that's not in our strategic plan. So would we just go under groups and then select the DPH level and then go straight to activities, or does it have to fall into like a bigger hierarchy? Does that make sense?
It's got to fall into the hierarchy. So it's got to be down. You got to follow down from a group to a service to a goal to an objective to an activity. And usually it's already in the plan. You'll structure the plan that way. So you're just looking at specific, like timesheets collected would fall under an HR objective. And there might be multiple HR objectives, one for timesheets and one for payroll stubs or, whatever the other things might be in there. Now, the best way to keep this stuff up to date is using the real-time planning updates, which is that automated email notification system. So what you're going to do in this case, you're going to set an activity leader here. And I'm just going to pick somebody from our little group here. I'm going to pick Mara. So Mara is our activity leader here. So I set that. Now, what's going to happen is Mara is going to get an email from the system on a regular basis that we set up. And that email is going to take her to this activity to update it. So you might set it up, say, on a monthly basis. Maybe the first of every month, Mara is going to get an email from the system, and it's going to say, update this particular activity. So she's going to put in this number. And if it's a QA activity, it's going to set the traffic light for her based on the number automatically. She can put a note in it, and that'll kind of be the end of it here. Let's go. I'm going to log out and then log back in as my demo user here so I can show you that capability. Okay. I don't think you guys have set up the email notifications yet, have you?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll show you how to do it here just so it's there. So you're going to go, okay, if you're an administrator user, you've got a lot more buttons than most people. These happen to be the buttons here. So under settings, oh, by the way, you had asked about changing your logo on your screen. Right here is where you do that.
Okay.
These two, this is your header and your logo. What you'll do is right click on it and say clear, and then you'll, oops, you'll right click on it and say insert into container. It's going to ask you to pick a file. Have your logo in a smaller file, like 150 pixels by 150 pixels, something along that line, or 100 minimum, but somewhere around 100 to 200 pixels. So it's not a huge file. It doesn't take time to load. And then what you'll say is insert into container. It'll ask you to go pick a file. You'll pick it, and it'll say upload, and you put it in there. And then that automatically changes your logo everywhere. When you do that, however, please notify me, because there's another place that we put the logo to make it available for all of the HTML reports and things like that. Well, actually, let me just ask this. If you want to change that logo, send me the logo. I'll size it right, put it up there for you, and put it in the right place, just to make it easier for everybody here.
Okay.
Okay, so this tab up here, notifications, is where I set my email notifications. First of all, you turn them on or off. Yours is probably turned off right now, so when I set that, it takes away all the options here. I turn that on, okay. When do I want them to go out? What a lot of people do as you're rolling out the system, they'll set it for every week. So I'm going to say every week on Wednesday, this notification's going out. And the reason you do that is to get people used to doing it. What it does is just send out an email, says, you have 5 activities that you've been assigned as the activity leader, and we need you to go in and update them. They're going to click on the link in the email. It's going to take them to their login screen. They're going to log in, get their user ID and password, and it's going to take them into what we call the quick update system. I'll show you that here in a second. Then they're just going to march through updating your activities. Once you are using the system for a while, everybody's used to it, then typically you'll take this back to once a month. A lot of times, in fact, the most common setting is this exactly. Week 1 of the month, so the first week of the month on a Wednesday is when those emails go out. Here's what happens in the background. For this particular setting, on that first Wednesday of the month at 2 in the morning, the system goes in and looks at every one of your users who's been assigned as an activity or an objective lead, and it's going to ask 3 questions. Has this person been in there in the last 30 days and updated their stuff? Number 2, is there anything in there that's been calculated to be behind schedule? So what it's doing is looking at the beginning date and the ending date on an activity, comparing it to the percent complete, whether it's calculated that by itself or you put it in there, and it's going to do the calculation that says, okay, we're halfway through the timeline and we're 50% done, we're right on schedule, everything is great. Or we're halfway through the timeline, but we're only 40% done, we're lagging behind schedule by 10 days. So it's going to calculate that. Or if it's overdue, meaning that we've gone past the end date. So the end date was 12/31/18, and today we're at 1/8/19, meaning that we're overdue. So it's going to look at those 3 things, and it's going to send out an email. And the email is like basically just going to say that. It says, you've haven't been in 35 days, or you got 2 activities that are lagging, or you got 1 activity that's overdue. Click on this link to update it. So now when they click on that link, it's going to take them to their login screen. And in fact, I'll show you on the screen what it looks like here. I'm going to go log back in here as this guy. So when I log in, it's going to ask me, do I want to go to the main menu or the quick update screen? And what a lot of people will do, in fact, most people in your department will never see anything but the quick update screen. And by the way, if you choose, you can give people limited access to just the quick update screen, so they're not getting themselves confused by going through the rest of the system if they don't understand the rest of it. But the quick update screen, when I take you there, is this screen right here. So what it's showing me is for this particular activity I'm looking at, which is establish recurring meetings with correctional health to discuss partnership opportunities. This is one of 4 activities that I'm going to be updating today, right here, 1 of 4. And what I have down here is the ability to only change, it's a QA activity. So what I know is if it's between 5 and 20, it's going to be yellow, which it is. If it goes above 20, it's going to be red. And if it's below 5, it's going to be green. So what this is saying is the meetings I'm not sure why it's set that way. It's probably just a test activity. But what I can do is I can change the traffic light on regular activity. So a project-based activity and a quantitative measurement activity, I can change the traffic light. In this one, it's going to change the light for me. So let's just take that down to 4 and see. Yeah, so I took it down to 4. It says if it's below 5, it's going to turn it to green. So it set it to green for me here. I can, on the other ones, I can just click through the traffic lights, so it'll cycle me through the 4 traffic lights. And then I can put a note in there. A lot of times, what I like to do is put a note at the beginning here, so I can say, this is a test note. And then when I hit save, I'm going to restart the cycle date. Remember, our QA activity has a new cycle date. So yeah, I updated it. I'm going to set the new date to current date. And now it took me to activity number 2 up here of 4. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to march through these activities. Right here it tells me what type of activity it is. In this case, it's a project-based activity, meaning I can set the light, change the value, and put a note in there. And then I just cycle through them. So when I get to number 4 of 4, that's the last activity, right? So when I click on this, it's going to come up and say, okay, you've also been assigned some objectives too. So you're an objective lead. So it's going to take me to the objectives here. And now I'm at a slightly different screen. It's the same information up here that I can update at the objective level. And then I have the specific activities underneath that here. The same thing, I have 4 objectives I'm going to update. I'm going to cycle through those. And when I'm done there, it's going to say, do you want to go back to the activities? Do you want to go to the dashboard? Do you want to just stay here? I'm going to say, okay, I want to go back to the dashboard. And it'll calculate and calculate and calculate and take me to the dashboard screen. Yeah, so that's the quick update function. And that, by the way, that's the way that you want most people to interact with the system. Typically, honestly, about 85% of the people in your department will never see anything but those quick update screens, because they're going to get that email typically once a month. They're going to click on the link. They're going to do that, just what we did with a quick update, and then they're done. And by the way, that's what most of the training that we should be doing with your folks after you get the plans in there and stuff is, it's a 20-minute training we go through with these folks, just walking through exactly what we did. Here's how you get your user ID and password. Here's how you change your password. When you log in, you're going to get this option to go to quick update, or you may not even get an option if we set it that way. Just go straight into quick update. You're going to march through these screens. You're going to click the next button, next button, next button. You're going to input the information. And what it's going to do then is bring it up here as this person. So it said today, you noticed that because I just went through that the date for Fred is 1/8/19 at 9:17 a.m., which is right now. So it updates that column for you, so you know when the person was last in there and updated their information.
So one question on the so we would set the I forget what it's called, but basically the monthly reoccurring email. What'd you call that again?
It's real-time planning.
Real-time planning. So we would have that set for all of the users to be scheduled once a month or once a week or however we set that up, and that would let them see all of the things that they're responsible for and they need to update. But then if we do it per project or per activity, will it send them 2 emails like, hey, I want to email Lindsay on this specific objective, or should we not do that? Does that make sense?
You can only set it up by time frame. It automatically looks at the people who were assigned as leaders in the activity or the objective. So let's go back to those and look at that part. So I'm going to go down to my, okay, so down here at the objective level, there's an objective lead here. So I picked Andrea. I can show all my users, and I can pick anybody here as my objective lead. So this is the person who will get the email based on the objective. Remember when we got through the activities, it said go to the objective screen. So Andrea would be set to go to the objective screen here. Down at the activity level, I have a team of people here that I'm going to assign. And the person who's the lead is the person who will get the email. So you determine who gets those emails by setting up the teams on the activities and the objective lead, and then the rest of it's all automatic. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Okay.
So that's a key element, is as you're going through and working through your strategic plan and your ship and everything, is assigning objective leads. Now, the objective lead is the person responsible for getting to the target, the objective, not the person typically who's doing all the work. But what they're going to do is update that information, saying, yeah, my team has got us to 50%, something along that line, and set the traffic light to green because we're on track. They're going to do that. The activity leads are those persons responsible for doing the specific activities that we're trying to accomplish, whatever that is. Create an inventory of the organization. So has that activity been completed? The public health system map was completed, or whatever that happens to be here. That's what that person's going to be updating, is the specific information. Again, they can update the traffic light, the value, the percent done value here, and they can put a note in there. And then they move to the next one. So it's just super easy. And literally, that whole process on average, as people are going through that quick update process, is literally a 3 to 5 minute per month process. So you can tell your people, we're not going to ask much of you. We're going to ask you to help us keep this up to date. But is all I want you to do is take 3 to 5 minutes a month to help us do this, and here's how you do it. And that's what those quick update trainings will be that we'll go through with the folks.
Yeah, I foresee the main time consuming is going to be getting all the plans in here and then assigning physically who's going to do it. I think that's.
But let me tell you something. People like to say, oh my goodness, I got to put all these plans in here. Well, it's really pretty darn easy. I do it all the time. And if you have a plan already developed and it's in a Word document or whatever you're using as your plan, it's copy and paste. You're copying and paste to get the whole plan in there to start with. Then, a lot of times, by the way, the plans already have objective leads assigned, and sometimes activity leads assigned. You just go in and select them. Literally, I can put somebody's strategic plan in inside, a half hour to an hour completely. So it's really not that big a deal if you have the plan already. Now, a lot of times your plans only go down to the objective level. Very common in strategic plans, which is, here's our target. Well, a target is virtually worthless, to tell you the truth, unless you've got a plan to get there. Because let me give you an example that I like to use. Tobacco cessation is a big thing in public health, and I agree 100%. So what you want to be able to do is have a plan. And let's say we want to do the service is tobacco cessation. The goal would be to reduce smoking in schools. Then the first objective would be to reduce smoking in Wayne High School, which happened to have been my high school about a billion years ago. Reduce smoking at Wayne High School by 25%. That's where most plans go and stop. So what are you going to do? We're going to reduce smoking in high schools. What are you going to do? How are you going to get that 25% reduction? You don't have a plan to do it. You're just hoping that it's going to happen, right? That doesn't work that way. So what you do is say, here's the activities we're going to do. Let me give you some examples. Number one, we're going to go to all of the tobacco vendors within a mile of the high school and assure that they're not selling tobacco to underage people. That's one thing. Number two, we're going to create a training program for teachers and students to make them aware of the hazards of smoking. We're going to talk to medical professionals and have them provide real-time updates to to teachers and students about the hazards of smoking, with the pictures of black lungs and all that kind of stuff. So those are the activities to get you to that objective. And that's why it's critical to get to that operational level on the plans, because otherwise you're just hoping that it happens. And that's not a plan, that's just, again, hoping that it happens. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It makes perfect sense, and kind of what we preach on. I think, and I lost it. Oh, need more coffee. Nope, I lost it. Lindsay has a question.
An IV for coffee?
I'm telling you, struggling.
Ron had a good question kind of surrounding this. I'm trying to strong measures that didn't have a baseline. So if we're still establishing a baseline and a measure, like, what's the usefulness of, like, how would we track it in the system? Since it seems like the system works on the baseline and then what we've achieved to move past that baseline.
I think to her question, there's going to be some plans that are going to be very process oriented. So
Yes.
did we do it, yes or no, and that's going to be, but if it's a new, health outcomes piece and we're just starting, we don't have a baseline yet, and it's a outcomes, a quantitative measure, like how do we, I guess is your question, how do we demonstrate improvement on that if we don't have any kind of baseline? And I think that's just going to come with time, I guess.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now, the thing you can do in that case is instead of saying we're going to improve over a baseline, you just say we're going to improve by 20% or something. And then you're going to have to maybe have an activity that estimates a baseline or something like that to start with. And then once you get through the activities that you're going to do to, reduce smoking at Wayne High School, then you're going to go in and do a measurement and say, or maybe your first activity is to do a measurement to get a baseline, something like that, where you're going to do a survey, a blind survey to students in the school saying, how many of you vape or how many of you use tobacco products, something like that, to build your baseline and then get to that point. But that's a really good point, is how do you establish a target if you don't already have a baseline, unless it's just a percentage change or something along that line, which again is difficult to measure if you don't have that particular baseline. So yeah, that is a really good question, but again, it's a matter of time of establishing a baseline, which you can usually do through some survey methodology or some data analysis. You go in and estimate a baseline, say, we think we're at 25% smoking in high schools right now. We want to reduce that by 25% or, reduce that some amount, something along that line.
And I think another thing is just, when we're trying to sell this to the programs is, what I'm hearing a little bit is, we already have to do reporting for the grant. And so, what I'm trying to do is to tell them we're trying not to make this extra work for them, but we're trying to make it easier for them. So I like the feature that, say they put their work plan in here. I'm working with one of the programs and I'm going to have them send me their work plan. So they put their work plan in here, and they also have like a monthly log. So they have their work plan, for the next 5 years on what they're going to do. They also have their monthly update or whatever. So but it's two separate documents. And so what I'm hoping is that we can sell this to them, like put it all in there for them, and then be able to show them like the dashboard features. And then I like where you can, in that reporting feature, you can export to Word, and then they could potentially just use that to complete like their annual progress report or something. Like those are the things I think, if we can kind of demonstrate that's really where we can sell to the programs versus, and to be able to have multiple people inputting data for that update, right? So right now, if we're all working on an annual progress report for a CDC grant, and there's one version of the document, or there's one document and there's 15 versions of it with everybody's track changes, that gets really hairy, and we don't have like Google Docs here that we can utilize. So, at least legally.
I didn't hear that.
No, you didn't. Oh shoot, we were recording.
Oh, that's right.
But really, that's, when you have 5 program people and you're trying to update a document at the same time, excuse me, at the same time, I really see this as a good option for them, that if you break it down enough and assign people their respective, parts of that, you can really build an annual progress report pretty easily and then export it, and then everybody could look at that document, right? Does that make sense?
Yep. And by the way, the ideal situation is that they're able to create, and by the way, a lot of people use this with the document management for grant management, because here's what they do. They build a little operational plan that says, here's how we're going to go get the grant. You know, there's a specific set of steps and documents you got to provide the potential grantor. And then once we get the grant, here's what we're going to do to utilize the grant. And then we're going to have to be able to send documentation back to the grantor proving that we're using it for that, right? So all of that can be a plan, and then you attach those documents to those activities or to wherever in the plan that they belong. And now, like you said, everybody can update that same document, create a new version up there. You're always working with the latest version. So if John created version 2 and then Jamie goes in and does an update, it automatically creates version 3. So then when Lindsay goes in to do her update, it's version 3 she's working with, and she creates version 4. So it automatically tracks all those changes for you, keeps the documents within the plan. You're going to set up an activity that has a date on it that says this document has to be submitted by March 31st of 2019. It's going to come up on your real-time planning update, that email. It's going to have that activity in there, which, by the way, when I go to, I'll show you here. When I go to my quick update screen, the documents are attached right here. So I can go in on quick update and not only update the planning element, but I can actually go in here and update the documents here. So I can create a new version of this document right here and put it right up there while I'm in quick update. So I've made the change to the document, whatever it is that I have to do, you know, whatever spending we did maybe for something on this grant, something along that line. And then you just cycle through to the next one. So it's all right there in front of you, and it just makes it so easy. Now, the other thing we can potentially do, if there's, you know, specific formats, if we can capture any of the information in here and then put it into a different format, we can build different reports for you, and then we'll put it into that format. Like you said, then you export it to a Word document, you make any tweaks that you need to, and you send it in. So you're not duplicating efforts at that point in time.
Yeah, and that's really where I think there's a little bit of hesitation from, you know, some of the program staff. Is like, we already have to do this report for CDC. Is this going to be additional things that you're just wanting us to input that nobody's ever going to look at? You know, like that's the hesitation
Right.
I feel from some, which is extremely warranted. But I think if you can help me do even just like maybe a quick tutorial, something I can show them real quick with like one of our, maybe we use the women's health grant that we sent you, and maybe do just like a quick thing that I can then share. Could we maybe do that?
Yep, absolutely.
Because I'm going to a meeting on Monday with a division, and I know specifically that they're really interested in grants management for the system. So they have a strategic plan that they sent me yesterday, so I'm going to work to get that in the system. But they also are really interested in aligning their division strategic plan with the department strategic plan, but they're also highly interested in it for grants management. So if I probably have no more than 20 minutes, you know, so even if we could do like a 3 to 5 minute tutorial that I could, you know, show them, could we like record something short and sweet like that, and then, you know, I could just show them really quickly, maybe with women's health grant or something. I don't know, I just feel like if they could see something that could be familiar with them, spark their interest, and then get them to where they really want to, you know, pilot it.
Yeah, what I was thinking is we could actually build a quick little grant project plan in there, and then attach a couple of kind of dummy documents, or if they have some real documents we could attach in there and show them how the system would set up and help them to manage that whole grant process.
Yeah. So are you, we sent you the women's health one. I haven't looked at that, to be honest.
Okay.
The document that we sent, do you think we could pull something from that?
I'll have to take a look at it. Probably so. I don't know any reason why we couldn't, but let me take a look at it when we get done here and see if it fits into the, you know, or if we have to make some tweaks to it or something.
Okay. I just feel like if we could do like a CDC grant, something that, you know, people in our building are familiar with, and we could just say, you know, we know that you have to do an annual progress report. We know that you're going to be monitoring your spending. We know that you're going to be monitoring your work plan all the way down to your, you know, day-to-day activity level. And this is just kind of a snapshot of what you can do. And then also, you know, how your activities could potentially, like we could tag it to the ship, and I know tag it's not the word, but link it, I think is how you use it, link it to the ship and or the strategic plan, just to kind of show, drill down, this is how this could benefit your day-to-day activity with your grant, but also how what you do aligns with, you know, the bigger picture here at the department.
Yes. Well, the other thing you can let people know is we're not going to, you know, we're going to ask you to help us to keep all the plans up to date, your specific plans up to date in the system, but we're not going to ask you for more than 3 to 5 minutes a month to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you to, one day a month, you're going to get an email. We're going to ask you to just go through and follow through and update your stuff, and you're done for the month. That's all you got to do. There's no excessive planning and thinking or anything else. It's just going to follow the directions.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, really does help people, because what I've experienced in the past when we first rolled this out, it was health department in Ohio, Franklin County, and when we first had it, we didn't have the quick update, and they were going through, and people were, you know, trying to use the system and going through, and they were spending, you know, half hour, 45 minutes to update their particular activities because they had to navigate through the whole pyramid to get there, and it just, you know, they weren't doing it after a month. And then when we rolled this out, we said, okay, we understand what happened before. Here's a new way to do it. We think it'll only take you about 4 or 5 minutes a month to do. Please give it a try for us. And if, you know, and give us any feedback. Then we got some feedback, made some tweaks and things like that. But literally, it took the amount of data collection up by an order of magnitude, by 10 times, because the people realized after the first month that it really did only take 3 to 5 minutes to update it, and they were done for the month. And people really kind of liked that, you know, on Wednesday morning, they had that email on their desk. They went in and said, yeah, I know it's going to take me 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to get this done, get it over with, so nobody's going to come in and knock on my door.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we hope to get to the point where, like you said, people are comfortable with using it and it's not a burden. But I think we're going to have some champions within the department to show how they're using it, and then to kind of help us spread the word. So I've just kind of been reaching out mostly to people who I know are nice and are my friends, and and saying, hey, I'd love for you to pilot this with us. And most of them have, you know, they just don't know enough about it, and so, but they're willing to try. So I think if we can just kind of have some of those small wins, then they can kind of help be the champions. And another thought that I had was, we have a department-wide meeting on the 24th, and I'm wondering what you would perceive would be a good, just, you know, whether it's a demo or whether it's just a quick snapshot, or some screenshots rather in a PowerPoint on, you know, how do you feel where we are at this stage would be beneficial for like all the staff? Like, what information should we share with them? I would love to be able to show, like, this is how Women's Health is using it, or this, you know what I mean? What are your ideas?
What we typically do to get people started is to go over that 30-minute, you know, demo, just to show them the functionality of the system, kind of get them excited by that. And then we can go into, if we have a specific example, you know, like the women's health thing, by then we can go into that exact example there. The other thing that you had mentioned was, you know, reaching out to people that you consider to be your friends and confidants. If you got people like that, especially if those people are technically inclined, you know, to a bit where they're comfortable using every technology, you know, just because they enjoy doing that and they know the benefit of that. Those are the people who are your best kind of first users, because they typically enjoy that kind of stuff, you know, and they like to have a new tool and realize the benefits and that sort of thing. So those are kind of the best things to get those people up to speed and get them on board with us, so they're actually, you know, excited about it, and then they'll spread the word, and the word will get around to everybody else who's maybe not quite the same level technical expertise and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, the people that have kind of been the champions. I mean, I'm an epi, so I naturally gravitate towards epi. So a couple of people that I've reached out to, like Rom in women's health, I mean, he's way excited about this, and he's very tech savvy. So that's kind of who I thought, the leadership have seen it when we first got the system, right, Lindsay? And
Right.
we've got some new leadership, so, it may be good for us to do that. And so I think some of the newer leadership, along with some of those kind of tech-savvy champion people, I think will be our next level of training. And then once they kind of get their feet wet, then we would go to the occasional users.
That's a great idea. If we can get a group of the technology champions, the people who just, like I say, like to have tools like that because they see the benefit of that, and get that group together and go through the demo and show them the thing and get them, excited about using it, get them in there using it, then they become the people throughout the whole organization who are the go-tos. People come up and say, oh yeah, I used it for doing this and this and this. Oh, you want to manage a grant? Well, here's how we did it. And then it becomes kind of an internal thing that grows from inside a little bit, instead of, somebody out here on the end of a go-to-meeting showing them the system.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've probably got in my head 8 to 10 people, so I think that might be our next step.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's get those people up to speed, let them ask all the same questions like we've been going through today, show them all the little toys and the tools and that kind of stuff, and pretty soon you've got a groundswell of people who love using it, are convincing their peers, face to face, that this is why we use it, here's how you can use it, by the way, you've got access already, here's how you get it, and away they go.
One minor question, what's up on the screen? So in my mind, if we're having regular meetings with correctional health, wouldn't more meetings be better?
Yeah, no, this is just a demo thing. I play with it, and turn around, yes, no.
Gotcha. So, because somebody asked me, I was talking to him this morning in the meeting before, and I was talking about the red, green, yellow, and he said, well, I'm confused. I would anticipate red being stopped. There's no more that you can do on that activity. And so I was like, oh, really? And so he was like, well, yeah. So I was like, really? So I think we would just need to be, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding, I'm thinking green is good. So I just never heard that perspective, but I wasn't anticipating that. So I think, just being clear on what they were. So when I read that, I was like, well, maybe he's right. Maybe. So,
no,
okay.
No, I just changed it, in fact, so that now that we're at.
I was just making sure I wasn't misinterpreting the red, green, yellow. So, okay, gotcha.
No, and those are, they're kind of variable, because it's going to depend, a lot of people want to have the percent complete tied to the traffic light, which you do in a QA activity. But for most of them, let's say you're halfway through your time cycle. Let's say it's a fiscal year and you're at the December 31st, so you're halfway through the fiscal year, but you're only 50% done. Well, you're on track, right? Because you're halfway through the time cycle and you're halfway done means you're on track. But some people would say, well, you're only halfway done, it should be red. Well, no, you're in progress, you're doing things right, you're just at the right point. Now, if you were 50% through the time cycle and 20% done, you're behind schedule. You might want to mark that as a yellow or a red, depending on kind of the background information as to why you're there. And that's why you got to bring the kind of the human element in. What may have happened is somebody left the organization who was running that project. Okay, now unless you find somebody else, that is a red, because you've come to a stop because nobody's working the project anymore. So that's kind of what the red, green, and yellows are about. And then the gold obviously is just, hey, we're done, we're good.
Okay. All right, so I'm looking at my notes.
I want to show you one thing, at least before we go. If you got more things we can go into. I just want to show you a little bit about user management. Can I show you that?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Again, from the main menu up here, you guys will have access to this, the user management screen. So what you're doing down here is Let me, I'm going to log out here and go into, so I can see yours here. What you're able to do as an administrator, you can set up a lot of things about each user and give them a lot of capabilities here. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my user management here. And let's see. You guys are, pick Janie here. Okay, so down here at the bottom, there's several different things you can do. This quick update only, what that would do is if the person has really no reason to go in and navigate through the system and they're just going to be responding to emails, if you click that, what that does is eliminate, remember when I logged in, it gave me that option going to the dashboard or going to the quick update screen? What that does is eliminate that option. It just says you're going to quick update, and it just gives you the option just to go to quick update. So not many people use that, but sometimes if you just want to collect information from people and you don't need them going through and looking through and playing with the system, you can do that. Not many people do that. There's user types over here. So you guys are org admin, which is the highest level user type. The next level would be manager, and then after that is normal user. Let me tell you the difference. A manager can delete anything from a service on down. So if I delete a service, I'm going to delete all of the goals, objectives, and activities underneath that. So you can imagine how big that could be, right? Depending on the specific service. So you can take a whole strategic priority out of your strategic plan and delete it if you're a manager. If you're a normal user, you can only delete an objective and its activity. So you can do, for lack of a better term, less damage as a user. So what you want to have as managers is those folks who are pretty competent, understand the system pretty well, and realize that they don't want to just go in and willy-nilly start deleting things because they have the capability of doing a lot. Now, if they do delete that, we can go back and get you the information from the backup files and get that back. So it's not, not that you lost it, but it is potentially damaging, especially if you don't see it for a while. We got to go back and figure out where it got deleted and bring you back that information. Read-only user just says, all I can do is look at stuff and I can generate some reports, but I can't enter or add anything in there. And then partner users are the, I guess, the least functional. What they can do, the only thing they can do is update the specific information that they've been assigned to. So a partner user would be a user in the system, and they've been assigned to a specific set of activities. So the only thing that they can do is just update the data in those activities. They can't change the plan elements. They can't change anything else in the plan. All they can do is update the data. So these are the folks who, remember in our car seat example, this is Andrea's car seat installation, who can come in and put in 21 car seats last week and hit save, and she's done. And that's typically those external partners. So that's number one. Org admins are what you guys are, and you have the power to do anything in the system, basically. Now, the next thing that you'll see down here, the next thing down here are the links button. Group links button says which groups does Janie have access to. So when I click on that, what it's going to show me is every group in the system, and it gives me two options: the view option and the edit option. The view option just says I can obviously just look at it, but I can't make any changes. The edit option says I can look at everything and I can make changes to everything. Where this comes into handy is typically, let's go to somebody else. Let me just pick a random user here. I'm going to pick Leanne Brewer. No idea who she is. I'm going to look at group links here. Okay, so this is very typical for a normal user, is they have read option or view option to everything in the system, and you can limit that, by the way, just by unchecking that. And then they have write capabilities or edit capabilities to their specific group. Now, in this case, what we probably want to do, since she's at this parent group level, the administrative financial management, probably want to give her access to budget and everything that's underneath there. So what I've done is now given her read-write access to everything under her parent group here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I hit save. So what this allows you to do is pick every user and what they can see, and you can say, you know, for instance, we had the old strategic plan in there. You guys might want to keep that in there for reference, but if you notice, Leanne can't even see it. She can't see it or anything. She doesn't know that it exists, but it's still in the system. So what you're doing is saying, you know, just Janie and Lindsay can see this. Everybody else can't see it, but it's still in there. So if I want to go in and copy information out of it, that sort of thing, it's there available to me. Let's see what else is here. Enabling document management is by default for everybody. What that just says is I'm able to use the document management system. If that's turned off for that user, they can't do anything. They can't look at documents. They can't change documents or anything else. And the reports to is just their direct supervisor here. The group that they report to by default is there. And what happens is when you log in, it takes you to your group by default. So when you're doing the dashboard, you're going to see just your group on the dashboard. If you give them view access to other things, then they can go to the groups tab and select other pieces of the organization to be able to take a look at it in there. But that's purely up to you. So I just wanted to show you that you have the capability as admins to go in and add users, delete users, whatever you want to do. Question?
I think on the users, so Lindsay and I worked to get the user list. So the user list that we were provided by you, which I guess Mark provided, who preceded Lindsay and I.
Right.
So we made some corrections to that list. So we have that document that we can send to you. My question is, some of those people, like we just updated that list based on who's retired, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We added some folks to that list based on fab domain leads and then some other kind of operational things that we anticipate. Can we send that to you and you help us clean that up a little bit?
If you want to send it to me, I'll do it for you, or you guys have access to do it right in here. If you guys want to go in and change
that. Because I would rather spend my time selling this and getting people's documentation and like facilitating that.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just send it on to me. If you can take the list that I sent you and like color code it maybe, so like new users would be in green or something. So that way I don't have to go back and compare them all. I can just go back and say, okay, I'm deleting this person, I'm adding this person.
Yeah, we actually added a column on that Excel spreadsheet, like delete this person retired.
Oh, okay.
It should be pretty clean cut for you.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll be happy to update it for you.
And we're not trying to push work off on you.
No,
like,
no. We're happy to help.
Okay.
Let me show you a couple other things. So let's say you have somebody who's retired and you want to remove them from the system.
So Leanne Brewer is retired, so you can start with her. So.
Okay, so Leanne, if we want to remove her from the system, first thing we want to know is she attached to any activities or objectives? Because when we remove her, it's going to remove that link, which means there's going to be no lead maybe for that activity or objective. So what you're going to do first is go to the reports screen here. You're going to go down to this thing called team/lead report. And I'm going to pick first name, last name, Brewer. There we go. So I'm going to pick Leanne. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to say, I just want this individual. I'm going to say whether she's a team lead or a team member. Really, the critical one is team lead, because the team members, if she's a team member, it'll just remove her and she's not really relevant. And then I'm going to say activities. And then what I'm going to do is I can either look at on a screen where it shows them all listed here and change them, or I can just do a report. For now, we'll just do a report. Oh, forgot to select, sorry about that. Select the department level here, and now go back and do the team lead report. I'm going to select everybody. Deanne Brewer, I'm going to say she's a team lead for activities. I'm going to generate the report. So what it's going to show you is every activity that she has been assigned as the lead for. That way you can take the report, go back and change those assignments so that somebody else is the lead. Otherwise, okay, so she's not assigned to anything, which is great. Report for psych show, report for all subgroups. Let's say okay to see if it's anything below that. Doing about a bazillion calculations in the background as it's looking through all the information in there. So what you want to do basically is you're going to run the activity report and you're going to run the objective report. And then if you find that they're not attached to anything, you can go ahead and delete the user. If they are attached to anything, you want to go in and make the corrections individually at the activity and objective level. Sure that I'm actually doing something. It looks like it is. Oh, okay, no report records are found. Okay, so she's not attached to anything at the activity level. What I probably want to do is do the same thing for her at the objective level. Look at that. If she's not attached to anything, then it's okay to go ahead and remove her. Let me go back to the users here. Show you a couple other unique things here. So Leanne. So she's not attached to anything, so I can delete her without having to worry about anything in the system. Now, if I had somebody who was going to replace Leanne directly, so they're going to pick up all of the activities and the objectives she's been assigned to, I can overwrite this information in here with the new person. So I put in their new username, name, title, email address, phone number, all that information. Now what happens is this unique number here, this user ID, is the actual link to everything else. So what would happen in that case if I overwrote her information with a new person? They would automatically pick up all of the assignments that Leanne already had here. So that makes it really easy to reassign somebody. So if you got somebody who's retired, you're promoting somebody into their position, but they're going to pick up all the same responsibilities, you can do that automatically, not have to go through and undo them and redo them that way. But in this case, you know, Leanne is not assigned to anybody, so let's go ahead and just delete her. So I just hit the little X over here and say, do you want to remove her from the system? And we say, yep. And she's history. But what you want to do first is just to make sure that you're not going to upset the apple cart. So you're just going to go through and do a quick report on, you know, whether she's been assigned anything at the objective or the activity level. If not, you can delete her or you can overwrite her.
So I think on the spreadsheet that we'll send you, like it'll say, you know, replace with, I think we made that in the comments, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
but
okay.
just
Awesome.
if you have some questions on that. I don't think anybody really, to be honest, has been assigned to anything other than like some stuff in the strategic plan if I've assigned that, and maybe some stuff in the ship. So
okay. Okay.
I think it's very minimal. So like I don't think it will hurt to, like, I don't want you to have to go and look every time you add some or delete somebody. I don't think anybody has any strong ties.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So,
Well, send it to me and I'll get it updated for you, and I'll just let you know when it's all done there. I also take a look at the women's health grant document you sent, see if I can't get that structured in so we can actually use that as a live example here.
okay. Yeah, so I have send you just action items here. Send you an updated list of the users, and then we'll probably add to that. Remind me again, we have up to 100 people that we can.
Let's take a look here. Here's how you find that out. Go to the settings button right here, and yeah, it says you got 100 and you got 58 of them assigned so far.
Okay, so 58 assigned so far. Okay.
So you got lots of room to grow.
Okay, so I think some of those people may not stay on there. Like, we just basically updated the list as is, and then I think once we start putting in these operational plans that our user base is going to change a little bit, and then so we may be adding people as well.
Yeah, and we can do that anytime. So you have 100 slots, and you can change them in and out, do anything you want with them.
That was my next question. Okay. And then we need to send you our updated logo for you to
yeah, please do, yes.
And then I think I've asked this before, but does the system have spell check anywhere?
Well, it doesn't have it built in. However, because you're using Google Chrome, this where it says Grammarly, Gammarly?
Huh?
Go ahead and it's a free download that you can get. It's a plug-in for the browser, and it does spell check and grammar check and everything for you because it's browser based. It's very difficult to do spell check and things that way, but Grammarly does it for Google Chrome browser. So if you want to put that on yours and maybe even have your IT folks roll it out to everybody, it is a nice little tool that does give you that capability.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I use it on mine. It really works pretty darn well.
Yeah, even just for email and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, anything you're doing in Chrome, it'll do for you. Because I have terrible grammar and terrible spelling, so I need that.
Well, and the reason I asked that, I saw under one of our strategic plan things, instead of pursue mission, it said purse mission, and I'm sure I've heard that. So I'm the editor. Everybody gives me stuff to red pen. It's both a curse and a blessing to have that. When you miss your own stuff.
We used to have one of those people at Maricopa County, and we called her the grammar Nazi. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't know if that was politically correct. So, but that,
probably not politically correct. Since we're recording this, can we strike that?
Yeah, we're going to strike that one too. No, the recording is mainly just for me to go back to, because I took 4 pages of notes, but I'll still go back. So, so we're going to send you the updated list. We're going to send you the logo. We'll work with you maybe to do a grants demo after you look at the women's health stuff, and then add Grammarly to our browser. And then I've kind of prioritized, I've got 5 areas here. So women's health, PHPS division, their strategic plan and aligning that with the department, environmental health link program, and then some grants management, and then policies. And I think if I can kind of prioritize that within the next couple weeks, that will give us some quick wins and potentially identify some champions. But I'd like to go ahead and probably send the 22nd or the 24th, or whatever dates Andrea had came back with that you all were available, and maybe go ahead and get those 8 to 10 users kind of on point for that training.
That'd be ideal. Yeah, that'd be great.
And so those folks, in terms of the videos, the training videos, if those are going to be kind of our super users, EPIs, tech savvy people, which videos should we have them watch?
Actually, other than the quick update video, they should be doing all the other ones. So if I go to here, it's the user level training is the basic one. If they're going to be admins like you guys are, then that one. If not, then don't worry about that one. Then operational plan development in there. The occasional user is just for those folks who are responding to the emails, basically.
Okay. And so would you recommend to get them to like go ahead and get their user login information and have them do the tutorials through the system, or just send them the link to
either way? But go ahead and tell them, give them the instructions on getting their login, or I can send that to you if you don't already have it.
Because I don't know if they're on our list yet or not. Some are, but okay. Some aren't. So.
Well, why don't you send me the list? Let me get it updated first, and then I'll let you know, and I'll send you the instructions. You can just send to them. It's basically, well, here it is. I mean, I'm going to go to when I log out, I'm going to log off, and it's going to say log in, and it's going to say send. I hit send and put in my email address. If I can spell. And then I hit send again. And it's going to say, yep, we found your email address, success, we sent it to you. And it just sent them an email with their user ID and password in it. And then they'll be able to go in and click this button and log right in.
Okay.
So, so let's get their user names done, and then we'll send them the information. It has a little thing that says, here's how you get your user ID and password, here's how you log in, and then go to the help and go to the training, and here's the courses you should take.
Okay.
Yeah, if we can get them through the video-based training before we go through the live training, it'll make the live training very, very simple because they'll know pretty much everything.
Okay.
Something else we ought to be thinking about in the future here is, number one, is this partner database that allows you to put in information about all your external partners for your chip and your CHA and stuff. So you got, partners, and then all the contacts for the partners in there. Down here at the bottom are the VMSG public things, so that you can actually create VMSG public pages, with performance indicators that you can share, so we can walk through how to do all that information. There's another thing in here that a lot of people don't use, but it's a service request. And what that does is allow you to pick different things that you want to request. And what that'll do is send a request to you to add users, replace users, remove users, or any other service that they want to request in here. So that it allows them to put in the information, put in whatever they want to do, and it'll send an email and a link to you that you can actually go in and help those folks. So it's just kind of a built-in help function, if you will, or a request for help function for people. Let's see. Exporting, we'll talk about that too next time, which is just how to take like your strategic plan and export it to a CSV file that you can now import into Excel and make any changes and stuff you want to do that way. A lot of people like, especially EPIs, like to get a lot of extra data in there, so you can create an Excel spreadsheet that looks just like the operational plan using that information.
Cool.
So that'd be pretty much it for now, I think.
Okay. Yay.
Any other questions? Did I overload you too much here?
No, this was extremely helpful. Yes, okay. I feel better and even more like I got a lot of work to do.
Well, you send me the user stuff. I'll do that part of it for you, and I'll work on the women's health thing and try to get that structure. What I might do is build a little test group in your account, and I'll just limit the view access to you two and myself for now, and so that we can play with that on your live system. You'll have access to it, and then we can let other people see it as you see fit.
So if you go to that email that I sent you with the women's health stuff, there's a gentleman on there called Ram. His last name is Marantha, I think. I probably
okay.
But he is extremely interested in this. He's an EPI, very tech savvy, knows ArcGIS. he is so excited about this, and he is it. So if you could even just like respond back to that email and just acknowledge, hey, I'm working on this, and because he already had a bunch of questions, so he's just extremely excited. So even just respond back, say, hey, I'm working on this. Let me know if you have any questions. You know, just thank them for their interest or whatever. That, I think that would go a long way too, and helping us just to get their buy-in. But he's, I mean, you could probably even add him to the user test group, and he would just love it. So.
Great, perfect. I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, no, this is helpful, and we'll yeah.
Well, you know, as we move forward, as we build the group of the core folks here, we'll have more of these things. We'll dig into the VMSG public and the exports and all that kind of stuff to get into the really deep bowels of the system, if you will, and get more of you folks really comfortable with it, so that you become the people who are going out and telling everybody else how great it is and how they should be using it.
And I have one more thing. Do you have a list of, I know you have a list of the Kentucky folks that are using it. Are you able to share with us like who in the United States is using this, or is that like some kind of HIPAA?
What we can do is we have a referral list that we can send you that has all the people who have been using it for a long time and have a lot of experience with it. And there's a bunch of those. I'll put that on my list here. I can send that to you.
When we say, you know, this system's being used in 3 other states, or, you know, whatever.
Well, right now there's 127 health departments across the nation using it at the tribal, at the local, and at the state level. So there's probably half a dozen states. Let's see, North Dakota, Florida, New Hampshire, Missouri, Mississippi, and several more are using it. So yeah, lots of folks using it.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I can't express thanks enough. So I'm really excited.
Thank you, and let's keep this going and really make a huge success and make everybody in the department feel like this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Hey, I'm all about it.
Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks, Fred. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.